PubCap. Well, when we organized this a year ago, when we thought about this, we were hoping that we will get passionate women like you to come. Thank you very much for that. I think what she's saying is, what we would like to do, that's why we're going to have a declaration. We are going to do some things that when we go out of here, all of us would know what to do among ourselves parliamentarians. But when you said that you were alone, sister, you are the only parliamentarian in your, yes. I think that is one of the weak points. That's why we would like to, maybe one of the things we should do in Goa is how do we increase your tribe so that you are not the only woman fighting. I can understand why you feel this way because you are alone, yes? Anyway, the men here, we want to assure you we don't want to take over the world. My favorite formula is Scandinavian. Not less than 40, but not more than 60. You understand? We want to be, when we reach 30, sister, we have to have a program other than climate change. Is how to increase you in Goa. That means how do we make more women run for office? And that is part of CAPWIT's objective, right? The thing is, men should not be afraid of us because we don't want to take over the world, because we don't want to be the other oppressor, right? We don't want to be 100 women on top. We just want to be 60%. Oh, yeah, we have only 5 arguments why women must be in different levels of decision making. We don't want the argument that let's elect women because they are more honest and less corrupt. We don't want that argument because I can show you a woman as corrupt as any man. Yes? But, because it also downs the men, right? Number 1, we are 50% of the population. We should be 50% of the leadership. Yes? Okay, number 2, there is no true democracy for as long as women are not in different levels of decision making. And that means to the bureaucracy, NGOs, the academe, and electoral politics. Third, politics is vested interest, and women know more the issue of women than men. Therefore, women should stop looking at men as their model of leadership. So we should be there, right? And fourth, we really believe in CAPWIP. If there are more women, it will change politics. Yes? Because when Brundtland in Norway was asked, what happened in your parliament when more than 50% were women, what was her answer? The will and the depth of discussion change. Because we are 50% of the brains of the world. And I really feel the world is in a mess because the 50% is not being heard. And that's our 5 reasons why women must be there. And sister, it's not just climate change. You have got to do some workshop that will get more women with you in your parliament, or you'll be fighting alone. Yes. Okay. So what we hope here is that we will all go home with one dedicated Manila Declaration. That's all we're going to do at the end. That's why we distributed to you the declaration. The one that was done by the staff of Senator Loren Legarda, the one that was distributed at the beginning, was not complete. So they will give you they made a mistake in the typing. So we'll give you. So we will put together the draft. It's a draft, huh? We're not imposing it. We have to have a group that says, can we come out with the first draft of the Manila Declaration, plus the declaration that was done by the experts 2 days before this seminar. Please study it today, tonight. Give your comments so that we can come out with a much cleaner declaration. At the same time, sisters, technology will keep us together, like I said, come an e-group for this group, so that any questions, everybody will hear it. There is no excuse if none of you has an email address. There's no excuse. How many of you do not have email addresses? Hello? You have no right to be in this conference if you have no email address. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just being a little bit hard. But definitely, one resolution here is everybody must be computer literate. Yes? Everybody must have an email address. Yes? Or else we cannot get in touch with you. And that is what she wants. After the Manila Declaration, we will have an e-group where anybody questions, everybody knows the questions, everybody can answer. That's one of the things maybe we can do very much. We gave you the documents of the... Please look at your kit. You don't have it? Hello, Secretariat.
Okay, thank you very much. It's about 5 p.m. We are about to conclude this session. So if you have some urgent questions and comments, I'll take one more. And before closing, I have a request from Dr. Kim. She says she wants to... Yeah, sure.
Can I respond?
Okay. So Dr. Kim wants to answer this question on quota. Before that, we will give the mic to Dr. Socorro Reyes.
Yeah, there were two questions from the floor about my presentation. One is really a comment about the strategy for climate change adaptation and disaster risk reduction that is based more on existing social structures and sensitivity to culture. And I think that's extremely important because while in this forum we can make a list of the what to do's, and we are doing that, and that's good. But you also have to keep in mind that as you go from one context to the other, there are sensitivities, cultural sensitivities, and existing social structures that need to be used. And then there was a question from the floor about, I'm going to respond to this. At what time can we turn tragedy into an opportunity? It's not really like, at what time? I think the cameraman, can you, I want to see the one who asked the question. Thank you. Thank you. So, my contention in all this discourse about gender and climate change is to present women not as victims, but as change, as doers. We can do something about it. We can use this disasters that strike us as an opportunity for new beginnings. It's like starting all over. It's like in our own personal lives, there's an opportunity where you are able to start all over again. And I think that is presented in situations like this. When you're able then to question structures, to question processes, to redress inequalities, to redress injustice, because that's an opportunity. And we have seen this happen in many jurisdictions, including Aceh. So there's that time when you say, hey, wait a minute. In making decisions about how we move on, I should be there, the women should be there, the laws, the legal frameworks that exist, especially at the local level. This is the time to say, hey, wait a minute, why don't we address these gender discriminatory laws that hamper us from participating in reconstruction? What about providing us the space so that we will be able to talk? We need livelihood projects, for example, livelihood opportunities. And this is a time when we can say, this is what we want. So we define what we need. We define what we want. And with sufficient, advocacy, we can express this, articulate this in government. That's why I used Aceh as an example, because Aceh is a very good illustration of how women themselves took in their hands the future for reconstruction in a post-disaster situation. Government was, of course, very supportive as well, but the women had that chance to say, wait a minute, we'd like to be part of the whole process. That's what I meant by that statement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, there was a question from the floor. Why is the participatory quota of women in politics a reality in these modern times? And if